So we now move into part 3 of the conference, which is starting with the What a Lawyer Fireside panel discussion hosted by Sam Lindsay and Sarah Wilson of Chisholm Clarke. Chisholm Clarke are well known for their support of lawyers in their careers and employment opportunities. With the legal profession being so fruitful of options and pathways, the services that Chisholm Clarke provides is vital while shining a spotlight on the different pathways in law can provide. We're going to be starting off with the panel discussion, and we'll sort of go from there, and I believe there's a Q&A aspect as well. So please join me in welcoming Sam and Sarah from Chisholm Clarke to the stage.
Yeah, just all come up. Yeah. Yeah, where do you like it? It's all good.
Hi everyone and welcome. It's great to have you here for what we hope will be a really interesting and relaxed discussion. Whether you're just starting out or a few years into your career or figuring out your next step, you're in the right place. I'm Sarah and this is my business partner Sam, and together we run Chisholm Clarke, a legal search firm that helps lawyers find opportunities where they can really thrive. We're all about careers with purpose, and that's what today's session is all about. We're joined by 3 fantastic panellists, each with their own pathway and perspective. This afternoon's theme is Create the Future, and we'll be talking about how careers begin, how they evolve, and how you can shape what's next for yourself and the profession. We've split the chat into 3 parts: beginnings and first steps, progression and challenges, and finally, looking ahead to the future of law and what gives a career purpose. As part of our normal What a Lawyer podcast structure, there will be a chance for a Q&A at the very end, and also some quick fire questions that Sam and I will ask. So don't be shy. Let's get started. Sam, would you like to introduce the panellists for today?
Yeah, sure. Starting on my left here is Gemma Wragg from Tavendale and Partners. They're in Christchurch, Nelson, or gosh, pretty much everywhere now. Ashburn, yeah. That one we'll do. We've got Jeremy Johnson from Bankside Chambers. He's also a Cantabrian. And Sam Thorp here is not Jenna Adamson, who was originally going to be here, but Sam caught a Hail Mary from me during the week, and we're pretty happy to have him here, so thank you very much. We'll give him a round of applause. Well done. This is the first time we've done something like this, and as part of that What a Lawyer podcast structure, we've just got this fireside chat, and we thought we'd do something a little bit corny and actually light a flame. And it is scented, so hopefully there are some good wafts coming your way.
We were joking about the fire alarms.
We were, yeah.
Hopefully we don't get evacuated.
Yeah, that would be ideal. So we'll get this thing started, and in our first segment, as Sarah mentioned before, we're just going to try and get to know these panellists a little bit better. Rather than listening to Sarah or myself talk, we want to hear from these guys. So what we'll do is we'll ask each one of you to please start by taking a few minutes to educate us on your career from the beginning to where you are now. Macro perspective, that is, okay? Couple minutes each, whatever you want. Gemma, would you like to go first?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, I just want to say I've been sitting and listening to all the things this morning. I found it so interesting. There have been some amazing speakers. So, big shout out to the Law Society for putting on such a great event. In terms of my career, I started off at Ōtautahi University and studied law. I actually studied geography alongside law, and I actually thought, well, the law would complement my geography because I wanted to go and kind of save the world. But as I got through my studies, and as you do, you build that student loan and you go, actually, a paid job would be quite good. So I took a graduate position at Duncan Cottrell. I was there for 3 years. I should say prior to that, I actually summer clerked in a regional firm. So I was in Timaru for summer, and that was really awesome, such a great experience, and really led me to understand what kind of the difference was between law in theory at university and law in practice, and maybe set me in a slightly different path than I thought I was going to go. So a few years at Duncan Cottrell, but I still had this kind of itch after 3 years there in the kind of corporate, in the commercial, so interesting mix actually, private client, property and commercial law. And went and did a Masters of International Law and Politics, focusing on children's rights at Canterbury University, which was awesome. Massively eye-opening. Really loved it, and thought now my career path would go down there. And so I was all set to go and go to a conference in Nepal, focusing on children's rights and orphanage tourism. In 2020, so then COVID hit. In the meantime, I'd been working at Te Pae Partners because they were kind enough to take me on a part-time role while I was studying, and had really come to kind of and really love the team there. And when COVID happened, I thought, okay, well, I can't go overseas. I'll just make the best of where I am right now. And I'll probably not talking about that later on, but I do feel like that was quite a pivotal moment in my career. I decided to stay, knuckle down, really get involved in the firm that I was in. And then from there, things really kind of took off in terms of my career. So I think every April I was promoted from solicitor, senior solicitor, associate, senior associate, and then was made the firm's first CEO in the end of 2021. So not enough Aprils in there. I don't know how that happened. I can't remember. But anyway, point being, end of 2021 was made CEO of Te Pae Partners, and was prior to that hadn't had any business training. I didn't have an MBA. Didn't necessarily know what I was doing, but I was really well supported in that role, and felt like I had the backing of the firm to kind of to make the most of it. And so in that role, the firm. During that time, the firm went from 5 partners to 17 partners. We grew to 4 locations from 2. It was just an awesome time to be involved in that. And then the start of last year, took a wee bit of a break, had my first child. She's awesome. She's a handful, but she's awesome. And have come back into a really different role. So I'm now working in learning and development within the firm and putting together a training program for young lawyers.
Awesome. Thanks, Gemma. And we'll learn a little bit more about that as the conversation goes on. Jeremy, do you want to bring us up to speed on you?
Yeah, happy to, and good afternoon, everyone. So I, like Gemma, Cantabrian mostly, started off at the University of Canterbury because I finished high school and didn't really know what I was going to do. But I was a debater, and all debaters studied law, so I studied law. And then I thought, what am I going to do after that? And I ended up summer clerking at Chapman Tripp, and then I summer clerked at Wynne Williams. And then I ended up starting as a graduate at Wynne Williams, which was an unusual choice amongst my sort of friend group, most of whom either became judges' clerks or kind of went to a big firm in either Auckland or Wellington. And I did it because the summer clerking experience was just profoundly better. You know, you got to do more work. You got more involved in files. The firm had a very strong litigation department, which was what I was interested in. So I effectively started there. It was some time ago now, January 2008, I think. And I was in the kind of what was known as the pure litigation team. So we did a lot of private client disputes, what we now call private wealth stuff. So it tended to do mostly trusts and estates at that point in time, and obviously quite a few commercial disputes. And we got involved in kind of more public interest litigation in the Christchurch context. So there was that kind of dispute pre-earthquake about the Arts Centre, which we were involved in. I spent a significant portion of my life dealing with Christchurch Cathedral, and I'm going to write a book one day after a number of people are dead and I can't defame them. So it's going to take a few more years, but it will come out. So I started there, stayed there for 3.5 years, and then I went and did my Masters at the University of Cambridge, specialising largely in commercial law, equity and wine drinking, which was also a fantastic year. I think a year off studying is just a perfect way to live your life, and at a good university overseas, it's an even better way to live your life. Sadly, that ended all too soon. A year was kind of not long enough, and I came back and became a partner. So I think in a modern context, relatively unusual for a kind of what was a mid-sized firm. I was a partner at the age of 28. Obviously was a salary partner to start with. I became an equity partner at 29, and then I was with the firm effectively through to, it was basically 5 years ago, almost to the day was when I finished up. So I was there for 8 years during that as a partner. During that time I was the head of the litigation team. By the time I finished, I had 12 people in my direct kind of line of reporting, which was quite a number, and the firm had grown substantially. I think we had sort of 12 to 15 partners, and we were sort of 21 by the time I finished. I was the 38th partner in the whole history of the firm or something, if you want to know how small the partnership kind of was. For a firm that was 150 years old, they'd never had more than 38 partners by that point in time. And then I went to the bar, to Bankside Chambers in Auckland, because I transitioned to the Auckland office in 2017. So my practice at the bar is really a continuation of Wynne Williams. I do private wealth disputes, commercial disputes, and I do quite a bit of arbitration, both as an arbitrator and as counsel. And I have, with some of my colleagues at Bankside Chambers, we have a sort of Singapore offering as well, which is a very lively Asia-Pacific arbitration centre. So that is kind of a summary. The one thing that I'll add is the extra piece of my work now that I didn't have at the start was I do, in the private wealth space, a lot of high-end divorces. So I do quite a few relationship property cases. And that change came about, and I'm sure this will come up later in our conversation, Sam, because one of my partners left. He was appointed a High Court judge. Gerald had a very big sort of family practice or relationship property practice, and somebody had to do it. And there were only two of us left at that point, so it was kind of between me and Jared. So I picked up a lot of that, and then, the point is, as we'll come back to, opportunities just occur in your careers, and you take them, and then before you know it, sort of 10 years after Gerald left, it's actually a reasonable part of what I do.
Nice one. Thanks, Jeremy. Sam?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me here, and thanks for the last-minute call-up. My pathway has been a lot more linear than Gemma and Jeremy's, and I haven't done any postgraduate study. I started at White Fox and Jones in 2016 or 2017, that summer as a law clerk. I don't think the firm had ever had a law clerk before then, and so that was a whole new experience for quite a small firm as well. And I got offered a job from there, and I've stayed there ever since and just progressed through there and became a partner in start of last year. And yeah, here I am. My story's a lot less exciting than you two. So,
a bit shorter too.
And a bit shorter, yeah. But less experience. So yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Thank you all for sharing that. We're going to dig a little bit deeper and ask some more specific questions, starting with Gemma. Your career started as a practicing lawyer in private practice, but you've now moved into a leadership and people development role alongside motherhood. Congratulations. Was that always a part of the plan, and how has that transition been?
Definitely not always part of the plan. I think at university I was kind of known for having a 5-year plan. That never, I don't think I got to year 2 ever. I think I have realised that no matter how much, it might be different for different people, but for me, no matter kind of how much I've tried to kind of think, what I'll be doing in 3 years' time, I inevitably won't be doing that. And I think that's just to Jeremy's point around kind of you just grab whatever opportunities in front of you, and I've got more comfortable doing that. So I guess the transitions from where I actually feel like I'm often in a role where I kind of go, I don't really know what I'm doing here. And I'm sure a lot of you have had experienced that kind of imposter syndrome, or like, oh gosh, they're trusting me with what? But I've got more comfortable in the uncomfortable. So the transition does get easier each time I'm put in a role where I'm kind of faced with, okay, how am I going to approach this, or what's next? So that's been good. I'll talk a little bit about the transition into motherhood. It's been amazing, but probably not quite. Maybe I thought that the challenges that I thought I would have aren't the challenges that I've had. And one of the things that has been the hardest, and it continues to be the hardest, is I basically trained my brain into being really social, do a lot of meetings, a lot of external facing stuff during the days. And then I would get all my kind of quiet written work. So my brain's actually learned to concentrate after 5 p.m. Really encourage you not to get into that habit. I know that there's a bit of pressure on young lawyers in some firms to work late, and there's always a time and place for that, but work smarter, not harder, is what I would say, because what I'm struggling with now is I have to pick up my daughter at 4 p.m. and I often don't get the chance to log back in, so I had to completely change the way that my brain works to try and fit in with that, which I just never anticipated being an issue, so yeah. You live and you learn.
Cool. Jeremy, from partner in private practice to barrister sole, why did you make that decision as opposed to staying in partnership or maybe going in-house?
In-house was never going to be me, largely because I enjoy talking too much and going to court. And the other bit is I really struggle with bureaucracy. So it was never going to fit with my personality, which is why just for those of you who are kind of considering what sort of work you want to do, private client stuff is so much better than working for an insurance company or a bank, right? Like, you don't have to fill out forms, you don't have to, the clients trust you, so you've got to be mindful of that, but it's just, there's a lot of flexibility in it, and it's actually very high margin compared to that sort of work as well. Highly recommend it. But why did I move? I was always going to go to the bar, right? When you're a litigator, it's kind of what you do. It was always on the horizon. I had got to a point in the context of Wynne Williams, the firm I was at, which I was very loyal to. I was there for sort of 15 years, basically. I've only ever worked at one firm, in essence. I was very loyal to them. They were very loyal to me, and I'm very grateful for those opportunities. But I had reached a point where I felt that perhaps where I was at and the rest of the firm was at and what I wanted to achieve out of my practice, we were probably not quite on the same page anymore. I also I didn't realise this until I left, and my husband will confirm this, of once you get to a point where you're sort of on a firm board, particularly a firm like that, we had gone through a number of sort of changes with an Auckland office starting a whole lot of stuff. I had a big team, the biggest in the firm by some margin, to run. I was flying between Auckland and Christchurch. I remember in 2018, I did 330 flights, no, it was 150 flights or something. So it worked out I was moving on average every 3 days, basically, 3 or 4 days. It was completely insane. I was just exhausted. And I actually didn't realise until after I left. So it was the right time for me to go, basically, was the reason for it. It was a natural part of the progression.
Yeah.
But the great thing about being at the bar, for those of you who are interested, is I don't have to do partners meetings. I don't have to do strategy days, unless I want to, and that involves me talking to my junior barrister. We probably go for lunch. I don't have to do pointless trainings. I have zero... Sorry.
Hear me. Come on now.
I mean those excellent trainings that law firms put on.
And the Law Society.
And the Law Society. No, they're not pointless. They're great CPD hours, like this. But I have so much freedom and flexibility and basically zero admin. Also because I have a very competent PA, so that helps.
Awesome. Thank you. And Sam, so like you touched on before, you have, you started at White Fox and Jones as a clerk and worked your way up to a partner. Mm-hmm. So you must be doing something right. It's been in quite a short space of time. Do you want to tell us what has maybe helped you get to that position?
Yeah, a lot of things, I think. Right place, right time. Great mentors who were sort of on their way out or winding down their practices, and it sort of just fell in and fitted in nicely with that, and I've taken over a lot of their clients and doing a lot of their work, and that's carried on well. I think I've grasped what clients want as well, and what clients are looking for as opposed to what I'm not sure, but in terms of just getting what clients want and delivering that to clients rather than doing things. I'm not necessarily saying cutting corners or anything like that, but just delivering to clients what they want and what they are paying for. And I think getting that commercial aspect and that practical aspect of it has really helped me and helped my progression, and understanding what clients want, I think has been really helpful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. Cheers, Sam. Thanks very much, everyone, for segment 1. We're going to go into our next part now, which is all about growth, progression, challenges, and lessons learned. So obviously, Sarah and I talk to lawyers like you guys every single day around the whole country. A lot of their paths are shaped in various ways. Competing priorities, timing, setbacks, opportunities we've already talked about. For this next bit, we're keen to hear from each of you three around moments that tested you, decisions that may have defined you, and what you've learned along the way. So if you don't mind starting with you again, Gemma, just because you're furthest away from me. I can reread that if you want, or are you ready to go?
It's fine. Several moments jump to mind, but I think one in particular that often gets me, and maybe relevant to the people in the room. I do remember in my first job, finding out that one of the partners just thought I was absolutely useless. And I had made an absolute muck up. It probably wasn't unjustified, to be honest. But at the time, I kind of felt it was a bit unfair. And I felt that there were probably two sides to the story. And yes, one side was that I had let that partner down. The other side to the story was I didn't feel like I was, I'd had the tools to be able to do the job that was given to me. But I guess at that moment, I then so fast forward, that was my very first year. Fast forward 3 years, and in my last few months, this was one of the meetings in that first job that I remember the most, was being in a room with some really, really important clients to this particular partner. And he was trusting me to give them advice, and he's also one of the ones that would give me a hug now if I saw him at a networking event. And I think I had a choice to kind of, I guess, either could say, stuff you and kind of rebel against, or I could kind of, again, feel a bit self-pity, or I could, kind of shrink away into the shadows and hide. But instead I was like, I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to prove that I have a place here, and I'm going to prove that I am actually able to do this job. And just because I made one mistake, it's not going to define my whole career. And so I guess I'm quite proud that I managed to, he's a hard taskmaster, still is, I know he is, but I managed to turn his opinion around of me. And I think now I kind of use that often to kind of motivate myself if I feel like someone is maybe underestimating what I'm capable, or if I'm underestimating what I'm capable of, which is probably more often the case.
Yeah, nice.
And then the other, in terms of defining moment, would be that COVID time. And I think if I was pretty upset that I couldn't kind of go ahead with my plan to go and do an internship post my study. But the decision I thought to myself, if I'm going to stay at Tavern Partners, I'm going to make some change here. I'm going to actually just get stuck in, and I'm going to start putting my hand up. And it's kind of what we've been talking about this morning, is just being courageous and actually saying, well, could we do this a bit differently? In a really respectful way, so I didn't, upset too many people. But just putting my ideas forward, kind of encouraging people to think about things differently, listening to the people around me, and trying to be a leader despite the fact that I wasn't necessarily in the leadership team. And as a result, I certainly didn't intend for that to take my career the way it did, but it obviously has been a massively defining moment in my career.
Yep, thank you. Jeremy, over to you. Moments that tested you, decisions that defined you, and what you've learned along the way.
Yeah, very good question. Decisions that defined me, I think there's probably two, to be honest. The first of which was becoming a partner with Wynne Williams. So I was overseas, I could have stayed overseas. It was immediately post-earthquake. Christchurch wasn't necessarily a great place to be. We were in an office at that point, which was out at Marshland. There's a Bunnings, and there was at that point in time like a 24-hour gym. Then there was us, then there was the Asian food warehouse, then there was the terrible cafe. We used to go to Bunnings for our coffee instead, and as you can tell, I'd show up just like this to Bunnings. The staff loved it, not sure any of the customers did. Doing that was actually a really defining moment, because it comes back to what Sam said before. You've got to be realistic about the way law firms work, and I was in a very lucky position in many ways. The firm was growing quite rapidly, particularly in the area I was in, so there's opportunities to progress, and we had retirements. And if you've got that combination of people moving on, and particularly senior partners, and growth, then the world kind of, in a sense, can really be your oyster. Mm-hmm. So I think that was definitely a defining thing for me. The other, in terms of testing moments, there's probably two that stand out. The first is, when you do my job, you make a lot of decisions, and a lot of them go wrong, largely due to judges. Could be the decision, I don't know. But at the end of the day, we all go through a process. You analyse the position in front of you, you make calls with your clients, and sometimes they don't work out. And I remember one particularly horrendous day. I was driving back from my grandmother's funeral. We got a terrible judgment for a client. It was to do with the cathedral case. I had to pull over on the road back from Timaru, read the judgment, phone the client, deal with it. And those sorts of things are actually quite hard, particularly if there's a whole lot of public kind of profile around it. So losses like that are always very testing if you're a litigator, because you do ultimately start to question the decisions that you've made. And you should always do that, even if you win, right? Always try and figure out what you could have done better. And the other sort of testing thing, that comes back to a little bit what you said, is when you find out what other people think of you. Which one of my great friends, Nick Davidson, who was a High Court judge down here, sadly died in March. He always said to me, the law is a very jealous profession. Nick himself was never a jealous man, and that was one of his defining features. But it is, and so you hear from people, oh, well, this person thinks you're no good, that person thinks this thing about you, and you will get that in your careers, particularly in our profession if you are vaguely successful, to be honest. And that stuff can be hard to deal with, but you've also just got to be like, well, Sometimes there's some truth in it, to be honest. Perhaps I was a bit hard at the mediation, I don't know. But those moments are also testing, because it can unfortunately get a little personal. But you just got to remember that's just humanity. That's just kind of what people are like. So you've got to take quite a generous approach to that sort of thing. And generally, and this is always Nick's advice to me, is listen to it, take it on board, move on, but make sure you yourself try not to be part of a jealous profession. And if you can do that, then you will be happier and the law will be a better place to practice.
Nice. Testing moments probably similar to Gemma, and difficult files and tasks from partners. One partner that I took over a lot of work from, Ken Jones, was winding down. He was doing 2 half days a week probably and playing golf all the rest of the time. And he would, when I was still quite junior, he would dictate to his PA a memo, and the memo would be 1 or 2 lines and say something like, "These clients are coming in tomorrow. Can you see them to sign this, or can you ring this client to talk them through this?" And it would be the first time I'd ever seen anything like this, and thinking, "Oh my goodness, what am I going to do here? What is this all about?" And just working my way through that, figuring it out with the help of other partners in the firm and all the rest of it. But that was really testing for me, but also defining, in the sense that I made a fist of it. 9 times out of 10 it went well for me. There's a few times it certainly didn't. I can recall a few of those when his clients would ring Ken and say, why did you leave the law clerk in charge of this? And it failed spectacularly, but we seem to resurrect that most of the time. So those were really testing moments for me early in my career. Moving forward and further on, it's been it's a test or a challenge or just difficult being a younger partner with an older group of partners, and the differing opinions and trajectories and what people want, and dealing with that is testing. It's just by its nature, different views of the world, different way of seeing things, all those sorts of things. So dealing with that is difficult, but an enjoyable challenge at the same time. In terms of defining moments, again, I think COVID seems to be a defining moment for everyone. I was at the stage at COVID at my age where I was probably right to go for an OE or do something else and have a change, and those options in 2020 and 2021 just simply weren't available. So I made the decision to stick at it at White Fox, to hunker down and make a really good go of it, and it's worked out really, really well for me. So, yeah, cheers.
Cool. Thank you all for sharing. And back to some follow-up questions. Gemma, again, starting with you. You've had obviously quite a varied path in law. How has your definition of success evolved throughout your roles?
I think it's become more realistic. I think for a long time, for many years when I was growing up, and I kind of knew this was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it also was a little part of me that really believed it. Maybe I still do. People would ask what I wanted to do with my career or my life, or why I was studying law, and I was like, I want to save the world. And although it was kind of a bit of an answer that stopped me from having to answer seriously, because I didn't know exactly what that looked like, I do think I set extremely high bar of what success was. And now I've realised that actually success looks different year on year, role on role, and actually sometimes success is just the small wins, and actually celebrating the small wins is really, really important as you go along. And so, success for me at the moment is being able to contribute at work, but also be present with my family. And that might seem really small, and it's I think to a younger Gemma I would have been like, that's not enough, but actually that is success to me right now, and I think that's where it's changed. I've just become more realistic, and actually I think that is I think it's a path to unhappiness if your measure of success is so unattainable that you feel like you're not going to achieve it until you've got to the very end of your career, or it's going to take 40 years to get there, or that kind of thing. So that's probably to answer that question.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Jeremy, what's something that you wish someone had told you earlier? Let's say specifically with regard to litigation in this case, what's something you wish someone had told you earlier?
Oh, that's a very good question. I wish someone had told me earlier how much of a people business it is. actually. You know, people think being a litigator is about reading the cases and reciting them to judges and all of that. But it's actually, and particularly as you become more senior, it's genuinely a people management thing. So it's a process. I have to manage the clients. I have to, particularly in the private client space, be mindful of their emotions, try and give them good advice, try and get them to listen to it, try and get them to understand it's all very well to pick a fight over certain things, but it's not really worth the money in the end, so we should probably try and sort it out. I'm then managing my own staff. I have to manage the other side to an extent. Often things in law go further than they should because one lawyer or another is not fully focused on it. They haven't gone and read it yet, they don't have a full view of it, or when you write to them they get very defensive, which is, and there's no criticism of anyone, it's just what humans do, right? When you get that lovely poisonous letter saying how wrong you are, your immediate response is to say, right, let me tell them, as opposed to saying, hang on, actually where do I think this is going? And then you're managing, if you're in court, you're managing judges as well. And then you're having to manage your own emotions at the same time, because it can be challenging when the judge is grumpy at you, the witness has been difficult and your client's not happy. So it really is a people management process, and to get successful outcomes for clients, because we say litigation, but it's really dispute resolution. My job is to resolve the dispute in a way that suits the client as quickly as I can. And that's what I always come back to. And to do that, you have to be super mindful of the people aspect of the process. And that, I think, is I wish somebody had told me that more directly when I was younger.
Cool. Thanks, Jeremy. And Sam, taking on a partnership role that would have come with some additional duties and challenges and responsibilities, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Day-to-day changes quite a lot. The legal work for me hasn't really changed. I can delegate a little bit more to some of the people in the audience, which is nice. But the big picture stuff becomes a much bigger part of what you're doing. So it's the practice side of things and delivering for the clients and meeting budgets and doing all that stuff, but also thinking about where the firm's going, what challenges are coming up, what do we need in terms of staffing and all those sorts of things. Even just things like authorising banking all the time and all that sort of stuff. I didn't really have an appreciation of all of that sort of stuff before I was a partner, and that becomes a big part of your day. So managing the, I suppose, the extracurricular stuff on top of maintaining your practice and doing your work and keeping your clients happy has been something that I wasn't expecting, and getting more and more used to it, I think, over time. So, yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Sam. And for our final segment, we're now looking at what it means to build a legal career with purpose. At Chisholm Clarke, we talk to lawyers every day about what drives them, what matters beyond salary and title, and how that changes over time. We're really keen to hear from you guys about what motivated you back then and what matters now. And starting again with Gemma.
What motivated me back then, I think, was making a difference. I think a lot of the, and when I was CEO, I was also doing the primary HR component of the firm, so I did a lot of interviews, and I still now interview all the summer clerks and graduates. And it's quite heartening to see there's still a lot of people, and probably a lot of you in this room, that have joined the profession because you want to help people. And I think that's awesome. I think at times in your career you can get a little bit disillusioned by being like, who am I actually helping here? But hold on, you are helping people. And I know we can't all be doing what Rez was doing, which we was talking about this morning, but there are so many ways that you can help your colleagues, your clients, your communities. There's heaps that you can be doing, and you are already doing without even probably knowing that you're making a difference to people's lives. So that definitely motivated me at the start, and it still motivates me now. I think another thing that I've just honestly been in the last few weeks that I have done this is I've always understood that you need to find out what makes you tick and what motivates you. And that whole moral compass that we were talking about this morning as well. But I probably didn't know the practical way of actually figuring that out. And a few weeks ago I sat down with, he's an organisational psychologist that I'm hoping will come and do some work with the firm, and he took me through my values. And so I actually had to sit down, he gave me lists of values, and I had to circle the ones that actually resonated with me and then rank them, and it was quite confronting because some of the things that maybe I didn't necessarily even know what motivated me do. And man, it's made such a difference to just, I don't know, every day. So, for example, one of my core values is contribution. And I've been talking quite a lot about that the idea of wellness and well-being and everything, I think sometimes is kind of put in this box of work-life balance and finishing work at a certain time and that kind of thing. But for me, actually, if my underpinning value being problem solving and teamwork and contribution, finishing the task, even if that took me until 5:30 or 6, actually fills my bucket more than leaving at 5. And I think understanding that about myself, rather than kind of listening to a podcast and finding out that wellness looks like X, Y, and Z, has just been a game changer. And it's not just in that well-being space. It's the motivation thing. It's what motivates me at work. So that's been, if anyone ever gets a chance to do a value session, lean in. It's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Gemma. And Jeremy, what about you?
Look, my idea of success hasn't changed, to be honest. Like, I became a lawyer in a sense because we are a profession. And I mean that, I think about a place like Wynne Williams, which has had so many great partners over the years. So founded by Henry Wynne Williams, you have people like Terence Gresham, Sir Alan Holland, Sir Andrew Tipping. And what stands out, and unfortunately they were all men, but those were the times, but what stands out about our profession is that it is a place where you can make money. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to live a good life. I enjoy drinking good wine. I enjoy travel. This is a profession where you can do that. But you can also do that while helping people solve problems, usually of their own making, particularly when it comes to divorces. I'm always like, you chose them. What am I meant to do now? You can. It always goes down well, I can assure you. You can help people solve their problems, and that's extremely fulfilling. It is intellectually stimulating. What we do, it can be very intellectually stimulating. I work with very interesting, intelligent people, like the people on this panel. So you make money, you do interesting things helping people, and then the other bit of our profession is you can be really involved in your community. And that's what I admired about people like Henry Wynne Williams, right? He was a lawyer, but he was also, in a sense, a kind of local politician who spent a lot of time back then, because of the way our government structure worked, serving for free on a variety of boards. And I've always made sure, and still make sure, that I spend, too much in a sense, but I probably do at least 200 hours of pro bono work a year, just kind of serving on a variety of community groups, as well as the kind of pro bono client as well. And I think that's a really important part of it. And I think if you can balance those three things, if you can make enough money that you can live the lifestyle you want, which, unless you're super into money, our profession can offer, if you can do interesting work with great people, and you can be involved in your community, that's a great setup for what I think is a very fulfilling life.
Thanks, Jeremy. And Sam, what about you?
Yeah, similar to Jeremy, I think success at the start probably looked like promotions and pay rises and all that sort of stuff, and that's probably changed a little bit now. And success for me, I think, is being a go-to person for clients, and being a trusted advisor and an ear for them to call on, and them asking you, well, what do you think, or what would happen if I did this, or what's the risk on doing this, and being that person to someone and being asked those things and helping those people is really fulfilling. And I get a kick out of that, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about my job now, is being that sort of advisor to clients and helping them make decisions, or steer them in the right direction, or give them risk. Often, as Jimmy says, they don't listen, and then you've got yourself a bigger problem. But that's all part of it. So yeah, that would be yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing.
Gemma, you've obviously had this evolution of roles, right? Are you able to talk to us a little bit about the work that you're doing now, just around that redevelopment of the training program for the juniors?
Yeah, sure. So it's something that we talked about quite a lot in my previous role with particularly a couple of the partners who are interested in this. Mike Taverner was actually very forward-thinking when it comes to progression of young lawyers. And we talked about the fact that we need to do things differently. And it's interesting this morning, the talk we had on AI and how the role of a young lawyer is going to need to change. And so I guess having had I understand what it's like to practice law. I've been through those kind of grueling first few years. And I've also understand now how the law of business, the business of law operates. I've got a good understanding of, what actually makes a firm tick and the structure, but also trying to combine those skills. What we're doing is putting together a 4-year training program, which actually doesn't focus on legal skills. So I'm a pretty firm believer that learning legal skills on the files is the best way to do it, as long as the people who you're working with have the skills to be able to teach well. What is in the program is kind of, financial literacy and communication and leadership, resilience and adaptability, business development and client relationship management. How do you walk into a room like you guys have been doing today and have the confidence to go up and talk to one of your contemporaries that you don't actually know? Those kinds of skills that I think you just kind of left to flounder a little bit in the legal industry, and it's not through anyone's fault, but I think it's just kind of always been the way. And I know that I kind of talked in the last question about well-being, but actually resilience and adaptability is what I focus on. So I heard a couple of years ago that initially the kind of marker of success was your IQ, and then it moved to EQ, and now it's actually AQ, so your adaptability. And I think post-COVID world, your ability to kind of take a new situation, quickly kind of adapt, pivot, and jump on that opportunity will actually see you excel in your career. So they are the kinds of things that are in this program that we're trying to get young lawyers to kind of not just be really good at risk mitigation. They're really good at, like Jeremy says, people management and actually relating to people and communicating well and that kind of thing.
Cool. Yeah. And Jeremy, what do you envision the future of legal services providing looking like? And do you think that might look different across different practice areas?
I suspect so. The best thing about being a litigator in terms of AI is we are the most heavily regulated part of our profession. So it's going to be, and we're basically self-regulating too, so we're not going anywhere, I don't think. Although I curry favour with the bench by saying things like, why would they get rid of us first? Why don't we get rid of the judges first? Like have AI decision makers instead? Anyway, I digress. Look, the practice of law will change, I suspect, to a point. But I think its core elements will remain the same, particularly for what I do, which is about how I get analysis done will change with AI tools for sure, and will become more efficient, I think. Are people really likely to go and talk to a computer screen rather than another person? I'm a little sceptical. And ultimately, the funny thing with humans is that our brains are just muscle computers. But the fact they're muscle computers means they work very differently based on a whole raft of factors to do fundamentally with your biology as well, like your heart, your gut. There's a whole fascinating scientific thing going on. And that means people are just freaking random. and that's kind of it. The decision making sometimes is very odd, isn't it, Sam, when you think about what clients do? Yeah. But that's because there's different impulses driving them. It's all that sort of stuff. And that's the bit of our profession that I'm not sure will fundamentally change, because our job is effectively to help manage that bit of people as they go through their lives, whether they're buying homes or doing whatever. So some of the process stuff will change. Yeah. There'll be a bit less of that. But a lot of what we currently do, I think, won't change as profoundly as people might think.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And Sam, how do firms adapt, and what is the biggest opportunity for the next generation?
AI. It's topic of the flavour of the month, isn't it? Embracing that, not getting left behind, trying different products, testing them out, all of those sorts of things I think are really important over the next wee while, and being at the forefront, well not the forefront, but leading that is really important, and being involved in that. And I think I heard an accountant say at a speech a while ago that 15, 20 years ago, all the accountants were terrified about Xero and MYOB ending their jobs because they wouldn't be able to fill out paper ledgers and all the rest of it anymore. And in fact, the opposite has happened, and it's created so many more opportunities for them to free up time to do really grunty work and business advisory type stuff. And I think the same thing will happen with AI and the changes in technology, and it will free lawyers up to do that really valuable, important work that people really, really value. Yeah. So embrace it and don't run away from it is what I think. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of our main chat with these three panellists. As part of our normal What a Lawyer podcast, we've got like 3 quick fire questions that we ask every single lawyer that we have on the show. Today's no different, but we're going to ask each one of them the same question, so you get to hear each one of their responses. Sarah, do you want to start us off with these?
Sure, and I'll start with Sam. What is something that you wished you'd done earlier in your career?
I actually can't think. What's something that I wish I'd done earlier in my career? Maybe just try different things. I very quickly ended up in that property commercial space because that was predominantly what we do at White Fox and Jones, and it suited me. But I haven't really explored any other things, and I often wonder what other fields would be like. And that's not to say I can't explore that later. But I very quickly pigeonholed myself into that field, and that hasn't changed.
Yeah. Jeremy?
Nothing.
Nothing. Love it.
Yep, no, perfectly content.
Awesome. No, that's great to hear.
That's great confidence.
And Gemma?
Don't feel the same. Mine's a bit boring, but I wish I'd learnt like more discipline and how to create habits earlier in my career. I was terrible at time recording. I was terrible at writing file notes. I still think about some of the cases that might come up at some point. I've just given all the graduates Atomic Habits by James Clear to read. I don't know if anyone's read it. I highly recommend if you're struggling with kind of just creating, because there's a lot of stuff you've got to do, right, and every day as a practicing lawyer. And if you're struggling to have discipline to do some of that stuff, read that book, because it actually sets you up to be so much better prepared to take on bigger and better and more exciting challenges down the track if you've got the basics sorted. Things like your inbox actually being, how often do you have to wait for 3 weeks for me to reply, Sam? I wish that wasn't the case,
sometimes.
But anyway, so I just think, form good habits early on in your career and they will just keep you in good stead as you move through.
Cool. Sam, what's next for you?
Next for me, dealing with and managing and being a part of the future of the firm. We're in an interesting phase at the moment in terms of we've got some older partners who are winding down, and which creates lots of challenges and handing over clients, and they've run the place for longer than I've been alive, some of them, and being involved in that and embracing that challenge and trying to create new opportunities out of that is the medium term for me.
Sure. Yeah. Jeremy?
Retirement. not for about 20 years. Retire about 60, but I don't really see myself changing what I do, to be honest. I mean, being a barrister is great as a day-to-day life, and the works each year is different from the last. It's the best bit.
Great. Gemma?
No idea.
No idea.
But how exciting.
You probably like that though, don't you?
Yeah, I'm excited, to know.
Cool.
But I guess short term, making this program the best and hopefully making ripples into the legal industry, not just in Te Pae Partners. I'd really like to see the legal industry kind of shifting the way it does education for young lawyers. So hopefully can make some ripples there.
Nice.
Cool. And for the last one, what is a piece of advice that you would give a new lawyer in this room?
Sam?
Me?
Oh, again, okay. Just grab every opportunity. Just put your hand up. Be courageous. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but seriously, just if there's something you're kind of vaguely interested in, go and talk to someone else in the firm that might give you the platform that you need to go and make that thing happen. Or just kind of get involved. And before you make any rash decisions about big changes in your career, just make sure that you've kind of tested every avenue of the position that you're in, because I think as a young lawyer, it's a little bit like this in terms of love for the job. Some people, like Jeremy, just loved it the whole time. I wasn't that person. Just make sure that you're riding those waves, but really taking ownership for your own career and your own progression.
Cool. Yeah. And what about from you, Jeremy?
You'll overestimate what you can achieve in a year, and you'll underestimate what you can achieve in a decade.
Yeah, that's such good advice.
So don't be discouraged if things don't work out on a short-term basis. If you keep plugging away, you'll actually be astonished at how far you can get.
Awesome.
I'm going to
Thanks.
take that with me.
Feel free.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Fabulous.
And what about from you, Sam?
Embrace the chaos. Our work, particularly the work that I do, can be really lumpy, and some days can be be absolutely hectic and you get everything off your desk and the next day's quiet, and it can be quite relentless like that, and you don't really know what's coming next. I often say to our younger staff, when we're out having coffee or whatever, the biggest transaction or the biggest deal that I've ever had could be in my inbox when I get back, and I've got no idea that it's coming. And just getting familiar with that and getting comfortable with that and embracing that, I think, is and along that sort of resilience type theme is, just embrace it, and it makes it a bit more fun.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you very much, you three. We'll just open the floor now to the audience. We've still got a few minutes up our sleeves, so let's have some Q&A. Would anyone like to ask Gemma, Jeremy, Sam, or even Sarah or myself a question? Yep.
Question for Jeremy. What was the biggest change moving from a firm to acting on your own account?
Look, it genuinely was the freedom. As a partner at a law firm, you actually don't have as much freedom as you might imagine. I'm sure Sam would agree with that. You have a lot of accountability, so it genuinely is just the freedom. And the other great thing about being at the bar is you work with different people. I work with a number of solicitors across the country, and with law firms you do have to work within the context of the firm, and it's just great working with different people. That's probably the other really great bit about it.
Yep. Where we go?
So I'm just wondering what, all of you are very successful from a young age. What is your experience with jealousy, and do you have any tips or, suggestions for dealing with it?
Oh, I mean, my experience of it is normally, like, a great example is someone who's on the other side of me was saying to one of my junior barristers at a drinks party exactly what he thought of me, which I thought was kind of remarkably indiscreet, because I'm always going to find out about it. But it's that sort of thing, right? When people say, basically go around saying not nice things about you, and you just got to be like, right, well, actually, why is that? Is there any truth in it? And you just got to take it in a really rational way and be very generous with other people, and realise that, because I'm only just 40, and I have had a very good career for my age, just got to be realised that for some people that they will find that difficult, and that's fine. I can completely understand that. I imagine when I'm 60 looking at the person who's knocking me off my perch, I'll probably feel the same way. Although I'll be retiring, so it'll be fine. But you just got to realise that when people say that sort of stuff about you, often it's more about them than you. That you will hear about this stuff as you go through your career.
Just to add to that and say, kill them with kindness. I think there's definitely been a number of times where people haven't necessarily been overly kind, and it comes from a place where maybe they're feeling a little bit insecure about you moving into their space or whatever. And actually, I think if you can just show them some compassion for that concern that they've got, and just kill them with kindness. Just find out what makes them tick. Figure out, listen to people, and just always being available. Don't get on the defensive, and eventually people will, usually, not always, most of the time people will come around and kind of realise that you're not there to make their job or their life more difficult or take anything from them. You're actually going to be there, that's someone on their team. If you can prove that you're on their team, then you shouldn't have too many issues.
Cool. Anyone else? Yep.
Gemma, do you or Tannendale pursue your education package, your 4-year package that you were speaking about, is something that other law firms or the Law Society or something, others will pick up? And do you have any great visions for that?
I hope so. I hope, again, going back to the kind of competitiveness type thing, I don't want it to be, I want it to be seen as something that's really positive for the whole industry, not just something that's benefiting Te Pae. I think I've kind of purposely left the legal skills out of it for 2 reasons. One I touched on before around actually you'd be learning on the files, but also because everything in here, the program and the way I've designed it is that it's actually just how to be a good young professional as opposed to how to be a good young lawyer. So those skills I think are so cross-industry, and therefore hopefully aspects of it, and I don't know in what form that looks like, but I hope that we can share that with the industry, other industries, and just in a way that will benefit lots of young people that are kind of navigating pretty rapidly changing young professional environment. So, hopefully. that's my hope. I'm certainly not like super protective about it, so yeah, if anyone wants to learn more about kind of what I think should be included after the research that I've done in terms of young training, like young people training, I'm very, very open to sharing, yeah.
Any other questions from the floor?
I think one of the challenges for a lot of young lawyers is how time poor we suddenly find ourselves. There's so many competing priorities at work and so little time to get through anything. Does anyone on the panel have some practical things they've done in their career to help manage that, help prioritise that?
Well, look, two things. When you're in your 20s, you have fewer obligations than you'll have any other point in time. So, you know, if you invest a lot of time in your career in your 20s, you will find it pays off, actually. And so that leads to the second point. You've got to be ruthless. Yeah, at various points you've got to say to yourself, if is this going to, you know, why am I here? What am I doing? Is this going to be of any benefit to me? And I'm a great one. I'm pretty terrible. I basically never have lunch with people. I'm sorry. I work through the day, but that's so I can get home an hour earlier than otherwise have to. I've just decided to prioritise that. Has it affected my social life? No. Has it affected my career? No. Not really. Yeah, maybe once a month I'll go out. And that's just a decision I made early. So, you know, you've just got to be very clear about your priorities and where you're going to spend your time, and don't feel guilty about saying no.
Just on priorities as well, I'd say, is it actually, is the task that you've been given or is what you've been asked to do, does it actually have a deadline, and is it a priority, or is it just, and does the partner or whoever's giving that work to you actually expect it back that day? And sometimes they will, and sometimes I think you'll think in your own head that they do, and you create all this pressure on yourself and you've never actually asked when it's due, or if it's important, or prioritising it with another piece of work you've got. So I think maybe sometimes like stepping back and just thinking big picture and asking those questions, and I don't think I've ever heard of a partner actually biting someone's head off asking whether it's a priority or not. So just stepping back and thinking bigger picture can help as well. Yeah.
I think also maybe shifting, I think there's a bit of a disease in the legal industry of being like, I'm busy. Like if someone's like, how are you? I'm busy. It's actually, yeah. I'm good and I'm quite busy. But I think busy is almost like used as like, if you're not busy, then you're not achieving. And one thing I've realised is that shifting in my mind, you know, moving stress to being good stress and bad stress. Like, yeah, you don't want day after day to be filled with that bad stress where there's like competition or, you know, you feel like you're not achieving, all that kind of stuff. But there's actually a level of good stress, and sometimes shifting in your mind from being busy being a bad thing to busy being, and I just think the power of the mind is incredible, and shifting that to being kind of more of a positive thing, it won't feel like such a burden, and I think you'll just approach it in a slightly different way. That's actually been the biggest practical tip that I've got.
Cool.
Sorry, I know we're probably going over time, but I've got a question for some of us in the audience who are hitting that 3, 4, 5 PQE, and maybe segueing sideways into training some of those new grads in the law class, so the 1 and 2 year PQEs coming in behind us. Top tips for when you're sitting there going, I'm still in this imposter role, and now I'm supposed to be training someone. Yikes. Top tip. Please.
Learn how to have honest conversations. I think you don't need to come at it knowing everything or having all the answers, but if you come at it with a level of honesty and you kind of be like, I think people appreciate that. And I think someone recently, it was a summer clerk, said to me, I don't know why people are so scared of giving us feedback. It's literally how our whole university is, education is shaped. We get marked on stuff. We get A's, B's, C's and D's. And then we come in and people are kind of too scared to give us feedback. So I think people will be really receptive to you giving them good feedback. And in return, they can give you good feedback as to, hey, I really think you taught me really well on this. Could you just be a little bit clearer in explaining this other concept? Or and if you're really honest and say, hey, I know this part of it and I can help you with this, but let's go and find someone else to talk about this, rather than suggesting that you know it all, you'll just build a really great relationship with people you're working with, and you'll become that go-to person, which will build your confidence as well. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's all we've got time for. Thanks, everyone. Wraps up our session, and thank you to the audience for joining us. If you're curious about the market, salaries, practice areas, or even our podcast, feel free to reach out to either myself or Sam for a confidential chat. You can also visit our website, chisholmclarke.co.nz. Thanks to Te Pae for hosting, and to everyone here in Christchurch and online, and to the New Zealand Law Society and fellow speakers for putting this together. And a special thank you to Gemma, Jeremy and Sam for sharing your career insights. Let's give them a final round of applause.